Okay, welcome to Story Makeovers. Hey, Lois, let's jump in. Are we going to your ski story?
Yeah, we're going to do my ski story. And in full disclosure, I did take notes from our last session. I haven't yet gone on the recording.
That's
So I'm
fine.
going to work on that.
That's fine. I don't tend to listen to the recordings either, but we've got them there if you need them.
Yeah. But I added some of the notes that you had asked. And I also just want to say, I'm going to segue them into what I call my itty bitty committee negative self-talk exercise afterwards. So I added what the tale will be. So I'm just going to read it for you, kind of read, perform, and then we go in. Parts of it I can tell you already are a little overwritten, but that's okay. We can always scale back. Okay, great. I love words. To me, words are tasty little morsels with no calories. One of my favorite words is courage. It's from the French root cor, means of the heart. See, most people, if you ask them, they wouldn't call themselves courageous. And I think that's too bad, because when we take a moment to stop and really take in and acknowledge and give ourselves credit for those acts of courage, we fortify ourselves. We remind ourselves who we really are, not what our negative self-talk or fears tell us, and more importantly, who we want to be. And there's also a lot of confusion around what courage is. We think we have to do something real big, like something out of Survivor, canyonning off the side of a waterfall or jumping off out of a plane to skydive while taking a selfie. Yikes, not my brand of courage. I'm built for comfort, not for speed. What we don't realize is one person's little C is another person's big C, and they're all valid. They're all acts of courage. I got a front row orchestra seat, an opportunity, if you will, to step into a big C at my last speaking engagement. Accidentally on purpose, I guess. I'm at a mountain lodge ski resort speaking on radical resiliency. I go up to the contact person and say, hey, let's do a little social media post about cheering folks on. Any thoughts? Hey, I got a great idea. Yeah, why not take a video while you're scaling up the mountain in the ski lift and then tie it into the theme of the event. Quick note, I'm not scared of heights. I'm terrified of them. Some hashtags, emojis, even a group shot instead. You see, I'm not so good with heights. Sure. Tie it into your courage piece. It's a perfect fit. So I spent the next 2 hours having an argument with myself about whether I was going to do it or not. Come on. You're the Courage to Sparkle lady. Come on. Fear, courage, word bites. What are you talking? Well, you're not even walking your talk. What's the worst that could happen? I don't know. Fall, break my neck, and die? Wow, Miss Positivity. You're really putting an interesting spin on that. Come on, you can't disappoint them. But I'm afraid. All of a sudden, my little voice, I call her Lovey, loving, open voice of instinct. Lovey came in and said, sweetheart, you're allowed to be scared and still do it. Damn, Lovey. What a time to pop in when I was about to bail. Yes, I have a very rich inner life. So when I'm on the ski lift, geez, the ski lift operator was like 12. And so, rah, cool, you're all good. No worries, you got this. I hate when they do that. Oh, and by the way, you don't even need safety bars. I could barely breathe, let alone take a video. In fact, had I taken the video, these would have been the highlights. I had to talk myself off the ledge, not off the ski lift, but out of hyperventilating. I took a moment. Okay, what would I say to my clients, the groups I speak to, when they're doing something that terrifies them? Come on, a snappy soundbite, a catchphrase, a mantra. Then it came to me, a few words over and over to say to myself out loud and to anyone and everyone who could hear me from miles away. One of my favorite Loisisms, life is always talking, make sure you're listening. Well, my life talked back and real quick. Sage wisdom came wafting through the mountains from the 10-year-old ski lift at the bottom of the hill. You can't go back. You can only go forward. When I got to the top of the mountain, thank you, my stomach having a heart attack, my knees wobbly, I stumbled upon the hilltop. I took in this panoramic view of the mountains, the tops of the trees lit with a burnt orange sunset that could take your breath away. Almost left me speechless. A quite unusual occurrence. That little 8-year-old Lilliputian ski lift guy at the bottom of the hill was right. There's no going back. You can only go forward. So whether your acts of courage are death-defying and bigger than life, or just smaller things like sharing an idea that may or may not work out, stepping up to a leadership role, whether or not you feel like you're ready, jumping in, not always waiting for permission, or just having the courage to sparkle, even when you're afraid. Take those big and little C's of courage. I can't guarantee what will come of them. I can assure you that when you do, you'll come away with a far broader and richer vision, a new perspective of yourself, what you're capable, and of life in general. And by the way, it's not only about you. See, when you take those inspired risks, even in the face of fear, you not only help yourself, but you automatically give others permission and the courage to do the same. By the way, I did end up taking the video on the top of the mountain. And yes, with a whole new perspective. And if you're wondering, I walk back on the way home, because let's be real, the girl's got to get her steps in. And besides, my motto is one little or big C at a time gets you there just as good. And now I'm going to segue into. So what I want you to do right now is I want you to take a moment to close your eyes and to think of a big or a little C. Could be in your personal life, your professional life, it doesn't matter. Just something, an act, a risk that you're wanting to take. It may jazz you up, confront you. And I want you to start thinking about what's that negative self-talk that's getting in the way. Because we're about to tell the itty bitty committee, wah, 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 who's in charge? And guess what? It ain't them. And curtain.
Yay. I love it. I love your ending. I love the way you ended that story. Don't change a word of that. It's perfect. I love the segue. I'm going to start from the end because it's freshest, but I love the segue into the exercise you're going to do with people, and we're going to tackle that itty bitty committee, and work through the voices. What's the voice telling you? What's the voice? Whatever. Okay. Now I want to back up. It's great. It's really, really, really a good story. You tell it well. It's funny. It's just got all the pieces. It really happened. It made you walk your talk. I loved it. You walked through the little C's. You had a great lead in. I really liked your lead in. When I say you have a strong lead in statement, you had a lead in paragraph, but that's fine. That's exactly what I mean to setting up this story, and you didn't give it away, but I loved everything you said about courage and what we think it is. And it might have been interesting to even say something to inject about society tells us what courage should look like.
I love that.
Measure ourselves against society's definition. I think that's an interesting thing to put in there, because often our little C's, we just think are little because society tells us that it should be bigger than that. So I think that's something interesting to throw in there. But that's just an opinion that doesn't have anything to do with the language or making it stronger. Okay. Okay. There are two main things I want to address. Language is all good. I like everything. There's nothing I would move, shift, change, I like it all.
You don't think it's too long?
No, I do not at all. You told it in 5 minutes. I mean, no, it is not too long at all. Fight the tendency though to add more to it. Our tendency when we then get the story finished and tell it is to start adding more. It's powerful the way it is, even though I might be giving you a few things that might add more to it right now. But fight that tendency to add more. It's good right now. Now, one main thing I want to say to you, and the best thing I can say to explain this is because it's not the words you're choosing. It is conversational versus acting out a skit and dialogue. I would like it to sound like you're telling me across your kitchen table in a conversation. And so there are places where the way you've chosen to say it is not in a conversational manner. It's in more of if it were on a stage. And therefore I would not go into a dialogue, but stay into you're telling me about this conversation, which would mean that you would say things like, and then he says this, and he's like, ba, 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 ba. And I'm telling myself, then that inner voice says to me, ba, 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 ba. I want you in that mindset as you're practicing it, to even sit at your kitchen table, force my face across from you and tell it to me that way versus going into a dialogue. It's a tiny bit jarring when it just, you're going to understand what I'm saying. Other people.
No, I totally okay. Get it, because I come from a theater background. So,
got it.
Yeah, more like I'm talking to friends, more conversational.
Yes.
And you think even in big houses, that's totally fine. And that's
play with it a little bit, because this is a nuance of a thing. It's a nuance of a thing. Play with it. And sometimes we can go into we don't have to keep saying I'm like, maybe it's just that at the beginning of it threw me off, and maybe that's what I'm noticing. There's something that's throwing me off a little bit in receiving it. And if anybody's listening to this after the fact, go put in the comments whether you're noticing it too, because it might just be a my opinion type of thing. But it just a tiny little, he says, he's like. The same thing when you begin the inner voices with your hands.
Yeah, the
nice one says this, the mean one says this. The ski lift. I didn't know if the guy at the bottom of the ski lift was saying you can't go back, if it was a metaphoric you can't go back, if it was a voice in your head, because you went into a dialogue. I did not know who was speaking. So make that clear for me. Who is saying that line to you? Because I think the answer is the kid at the bottom.
Oh, absolutely.
So I missed that, even though I knew the answer. I missed that as your listener in that moment. Make it very clear. The kid yelled, and then the kid yells out to me, "You can't go back." So that's it's just clearing up some things for your listener.
Yeah.
When you do the itty bitty voice, I already said, want some more language around that. That's what I mean when I was saying that. This voice says that, this voice. I think you had two voices that were very clear with those hands. And I think it would be helpful if even if you don't ever say it, if you just know it, which hand is the good voice, which hand is the mean voice. And then when a loving voice came in, it took the position of another one. And if you're going to have a third voice in here, then give it a different space. Okay. And so, because that was
like blocking.
I often see the voices as, well, give blocking to what, and tell me what they are. And I think it'll be helpful when you go into your exercise later. There's the voice that wants to tear you down there, because this one was kind of the insecure voice. So anyway, get some clarity around, and then the loving voice, get some clarity around that in your own head. And then when you tell it to me, it's, and be thinking about what it is for us when you go into your exercise, because I think you're exactly right. These itty bitty voices, there's the voice wanting to tear us down. I don't know, you need to figure that out. The voice of insecurity, there's the loving voice. I start to get confused about that. And I think you want clarity, because when you go into exercise mode, you're going to want to tell us, and it could be as simple as, when I do this, And I'm getting clarity around that too, because I've been doing it in my own work, saying the little girl with the voices in her head. And I'm like, wait, Kelly, get clear on this. There's the mean voice that tells you what you aren't. And there's the good voice that tells you what you are. There's the truth and there's the lie.
Right.
I use it in the truth and the lie. So get some more strength around that. And I do think starting with your exercise and then going back so that you've given them a visual they can now take to the exercise. We'll explore that a little bit more. Let me see if there's another tiny little thing. Yes, one last little thing I want to tell you, and then we can jump into oh wait, two more little things. Do you want to talk about that before I jump into the other two things?
No. I've been playing with, in fact, I want to start doing more videos with sock puppets. The different voices in our head. So I literally just came up with that about 20 minutes before we hopped on the call. But you're absolutely right, because it's not necessarily good angel and devil. It's the bully and the one who's afraid. So it needs to be clarified. There needs to be better clarity. And maybe Lovey will be like, sweetheart, like the voice of the loving voice comes out like, it could even be like a Twilight Zone scene. I mean, I can have fun with that, where it could be very clear. Yeah, no, I got it.
And I do think if you practice it, starting with the exercise, it is where you're going to get, and you need to now help someone identify in your exercise. Okay, because you're going into their real life now, and that will really help you mold through what you're teaching them to go look for. And now you go back it up and go, okay, I'm going to go present these pieces. Okay, a couple other things I wanted to say. We don't know you're asking for applause the first time you say it. So if you go, hello, I'm on the ski lift, and they don't applause. If for some reason they still don't know that's what you're waiting for, then go, a little applause here. Now, I know you've done it and they did it for you, but I'm just telling you, I had that feeling that I wasn't sure you were waiting for me to, even though I knew that's what you were waiting for. So if not, be prepared to ask them, a little applause here, and then the next time you do it, you won't have to do that, because now we get it the next time. There's just a little piece of me that wonders if people are going to be slow to that, to that nuance. Right. Okay. The last thing I want to say is, I felt like you were at the top, and I was nodding. You're at the top, taking in the panoramic. I love that. I didn't feel that last time. I was like, oh, we didn't explore that last time. I'm glad we are, where you took a breath and the panoramic. And then you skipped over it very quickly into you conversation for them, which I love that you're taking to them. So next time you. I would love for you to take a beat in between there. Have a victory moment at the top of that ski lift. You took in the panoramic, and I was waiting for you to tell me how glad you were that you did this, because you had victory, and I did not get that. So have the victory that you were glad. I never felt that you were glad you took this, that you faced this fear. So I want you at the top of that ski lift to see beauty and to talk about, oh, wow, I would have missed this. Oh, how beautiful this is. Oh, have something there for me that says, I am so glad I did this. And then before you go to them, and just so you know, this is resolution in my story formula. This is your problem solved. You took the courage, and here was your payoff. We don't go 10 years ahead like a victory moment might be, and 3 years later, look, I'm afraid, no, we're going to a much quicker, shorter but we're kind of going to a victory moment where you're sitting in here, having solved this problem. You faced your fears and look at the payoff. And I want you to have that proud for myself. Oh my gosh, I did it. I'm stronger than I thought I was. It's going to be easier the next mountain I have to climb because I did this. I want you to feel proud of yourself for having done it. And before you go to you, meaning the audience, I want you to have the lesson you learned in that moment. What lesson did you learn? That's part of this whole, when I take everybody through that conflict, resolution, emotion, victory moment, lesson, I'm forcing you to have all those. So you're sitting at the top and you're going, you know what? I learned an important lesson that day at the top of the ski lift. And I want you to have that lesson for me, Lois. Have the lesson before you then go tell me how to have it. And then you go to you. So that next time you're facing your last. Okay. And that's all that was, I wanted your story to go all the way through I had this conflict. It was resolved. Here was the lesson up. Here was my victory moment. Here's what I learned in that. And here's what you can learn in that. Here's what you take away from that. And I'm telling you what, this is a great story, Lois. Really good. Really good.
I just want to thank you. This is all really helpful and spot on. And like I said, I'm just fleshing it out, but I want to also just for my own edification, but for also people listening, what were a few moments that shifted between the first story and the second out of your coaching to me. I thought it'd be helpful not only for our work, but for people to hear, is you had said to me the first time what was really missing was the internal decision-making around whether or not I was going to do it. That's where the sock puppets in. And that really provided so much value for me, because I was like, we don't just make those split and like give the audience a bird's eye view of what my internal journey was. So that was life change. That was a game changer for the story. So I wanted to thank you for that.
You're welcome. I want to say something else to tag off of that.
Yeah.
What many times when we tell a story, we go into it, we say, this is what happened, and we move on. Many speakers are doing this, me included. But when we can come back and look at the story and say, who's the character? Me. What was my conflict? I had to go face one of my fears. What did it feel like to have this? Oh, I felt whatever. What was it? It was and then how did that make you feel? You know, is there more to the conflict? It created this conflict, whatever. How was that resolved? Oh, I did it. I went to the top. I did what happened as a result? Oh, this is how it was resolved. I went through it. I got at the top, and oh, how did that feel? And oh, wow. And what was the victory you had in that? Oh, it was this victory in this. And did it impact you? And did it impact your friends? And did it impact your life later? Oh, how did that feel? And what lesson did all of that boil down to? Well, the lesson I learned was boom, boom, and boom. Oh, wow. So what am I supposed to take out of that? Well, when you're going down this road, boom, boom, boom. And what I have just walked you through are the pieces in the structure I have created.
Yeah.
Every time, if we follow that, we will have a persuasively compelling story. Now I'm about to do a plug now, but y'all are all in the academy, so it's not really a plug. This is what I'm teaching you in the Persuasion Principle course. It's the third module, which is what are the pieces of a story? And I'm telling you, Lois, this came because of looking at thousands of stories, every one after the other. If you force it through the formula, you're going to have a stronger foundation. Now, as an added plug, and the reason I'm saying this is because the course was just finished. It was just launched. You all now have access to it. And so I just told you what the last module of it, there's 3 modules. The middle module is the anatomy of a presentation, because there is an anatomy of, well, not only inside the story, but this anatomy, like it's a piece of music of where we can take, and it's not a hard and fast, but it's the one I've created, of what every piece that we put together that builds on itself, that is the anatomy of this whole presentation.
I love that.
And the first module is, well, how do we come at, none of this matters if you don't understand that we have to shift from going into your presentation or your story, just giving me the facts.
Yeah.
You have to understand the anatomy of an emotional connection, you, it, and them, which is applied to everything. So thank you for letting me take this moment to explain how the Persuasion Principle course exists for all of y'all, and why. And one last thing I do want to say too is that this is what I'm not going to keep repeating to everybody. And from here on out, when you hear me say, this is what the third module of the course is, y'all are going to get sick of me saying it, but I will say, module 3 of the course, go back and revisit it. When
Yeah.
you learn this, you'll be able to push it through. But also the beauty of the course is you don't have to if you don't want to, because I'm always going to be looking at it for you. And I'm always going to meet you where you are. And if you're like me, I'm too busy. I don't have time to go take a course. I'm always going to be sitting here waiting to meet you
Right.
exactly where you are. So I don't want people to feel like you have to do that as well. Did you want to say something final before I turn the recording?
Yeah. Can you go through those? I know it's in the course, but I know you said character, conflict.
Well, I'll go through it now, but I'm
Yeah,
not going to go through it in full depth because
no. I just want the sound bites.
okay, character,
Yeah.
conflict. Well,
Yeah.
character and context.
Okay.
I've added a few more in the course that I'm not going to go into now, but a character and some context.
Of course. Yeah.
I want the conflict. What's the problem you had
Yeah.
or the desire you want? The emotion. How'd it make you feel?
Okay.
And then the resolution. How did it make you feel?
Emotion with the resolution. Okay.
Every one of these steps has emotion because you're taking your listener
Right.
driving the car. So they're going to connect based on the feeling, not just what happened. Where
And
was
then
I? Victory?
I have character/contact. Number 2, conflict. Number 3, emotion. Number 4, resolution.
Emotion. Add emotion again. Resolution plus emotion plus victory.
Okay.
Plus emotion.
Right.
Plus lesson. Let's say lesson for me plus lesson for you.
Okay.
And that's all I'll give you today. The course adds some more pieces to it.
Yeah.
And I've made it a little different and easier to understand, but I'm not going to keep going through those.
No. And I'm glad. And the last thing I just want to say, this was really helpful. As always, you're brilliant. I want to just say out loud to myself that might help others is this is also a great diagnostic tool, because if our stories are falling flat and aren't hitting the mark, what I hear in this is I can go back to look at this wonderful guide and go, what am I missing or what's not being? So, it's like maybe I've gotten them, but I'm not either showing or telling what the emotions are, or I've had the victory, but I'm not translating the lesson for me to the lesson for them. So it's also a great tool to build a great story, but it's also a great diagnostic tool if our stories are falling flat or should quote unquote have more impact and they're not. So I see it on both levels.
And Lois, I'm going to share this video with your permission publicly.
Of course.
Across everywhere.
I think it's really important.
I think it's good to show what Story Impact Academy feels like, that the curriculum underneath it all. And I want to say one last thing before I turn the recording off, but with your permission, I'm going to share this today everywhere so people can sort of see what we're all about. Yes, it's a good diagnostic tool. I have had stories myself, Chub Rub being a great example. It was already a good story. It was even meant for humor. It wasn't meant, because I've done a video before where I talked about, I do it in the course, the difference in a strategic story versus just an entertaining story. We might not go to all those lengths if you're in a comedy club or a theater show. However, Chub Rub, as you know full well, because you were quite involved with the theater show birth of all that. But Chub Rub was already a very entertaining story.
Absolutely.
And I did the same thing. I went through and went, well, wait, can I put something inside here that even gives it more merit and more worth and more value and more substance? And so I went through and I went, well, who's the character? Me. What conflict was I having? Oh, let me go look at that. How do I go tell them? What's the content? What was I going through? What pain did I have? Oh, and the story took on a whole new life.
Oh my God, totally.
When I was able to figure out what I was going through and why that moment meant so much, when I was able to put it through. So to those, now that I've decided to share this session, what you have just seen here today is an excerpt from one of our monthly online story makeover sessions. I offer these every month. People can come in and they get help one-on-one in a group format, and then Lois leaves and another person comes in and you can stay and watch. It's part of Story Impact Academy. People spend the whole year with me. They get access to these things every month. But also the Persuasion Principle course is part of what we are offering, where Lois can go back now and at any point she can go jump in the course, take it at her own pace, ask me questions, come back, bring what she's learned. It's the combination of a course plus spending a year with me. If you are interested in joining us, and I highly recommend that you do. Some of you are like, no, I've got a speech that needs an overhaul. It needs help right now. I got a TED Talk. You can get help this week by coming in and getting your turn
Totally.
and just, right, Lois, and just having me
Oh my God.
in
I mean,
15-minute doses versus paying for an hour of my time one-on-one. It is crazy. Lois, I'll let you end with a plug for this before I turn off the video about why they should join.
And I want to just say one thing about what you just said, Kelly. When you did your humor story, I want to even go a level deeper, which is your Chub Rope story was hysterical. I listened to it all the time, but it was very genderized. It was a woman's story. As soon as you made it strategic, it lost the gender piece, men and women alike. And that is what I think is such a big distinction between humorists. And recently I've gotten calls from some clients and they're like, we see you mostly speak to women. Do you do co-ed? And I really think that when we move those type of stories from humorous to strategic, we leave out, like, it becomes a level playing field. So I think that's a very important piece to add. So I just
okay, now I have to tag off of that because I want to agree with you, because when you add the conflict and a resolution and emotion, and the conflict in that story is feeling like I don't fit into a professional world that looked like it was built for somebody else. And yes, you are exactly right. Once I could identify and state a conflict, and that's why conflicts can have layers. The first conflict was my thighs rubbed together and it sounded like rocking chairs rolling over kitten tails. That's the first conflict. Very few people are going to relate to that. When I say it was embarrassing, I felt ostracized. Okay, wait a minute. Now people are going, oh, well, wait, I felt ostracized before. When I say, once again, I don't fit into my own professional industry, boom. Somebody else is going, oh, wait, I don't either. And when I say, I felt like I didn't belong, I felt like I couldn't feel free to be me, I didn't feel authentic. You're now grabbing the rest of the audience who recognizes that emotion. And now a story that one could say, why would you tell a story about your thighs rubbing together? Lois, I could tell it anywhere.
And people relate to it.
It's just
strategic.
The space. It is just the space to hold a feeling and a conflict that many people can relate to. That's why I always say, and we really will stop on this one or the video will be too much to wade through. That's why I always say it is not about finding the best story. It's about finding the right story that illustrates the pain and the desire that mirrors the people you are trying to motivate, persuade, and take to a new level. And I'm going to end on that note. Join StoryImpactAcademy.com. You will be glad that you did. And that I promise.